Then let's begin with a word of prayer. Father, in our lives, we have chosen to be your disciple. We have chosen to reach out to those around us and around the world, to take them the message of your salvation. And we are grateful that you called us to be your disciples. Give others the opportunity through us that they may hear the call and maybe respond by becoming your disciple. And this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, let's see. What did we do? Last week, Jesus healed the centurion's son or servant. He moved then to Capernaum, and where he plans now on anchoring his ministry. It's about the third week of May. That's about now. How about that? But this was in only 28 AD, so I think we've got a few years on it. Okay, we would need to look in the Gospel of Mark. There are three different, because we have the synoptics. Mark is the shortest one, Mark 1:16 to 20. And then whoever wants to can look up Matthew.
I'll take that one.
Thank you. 4:13 to 22. And then for the really long one would be Luke, beginning at 4:31.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, and then it'll go 5:1 through 11. So let's start off with the reading from Mark. Mark 1:16 to 20.
I can do that.
Thank you.
I think. And passing along by the Sea of Galilee, he saw Simon and Andrew, the brother of Simon, casting a net in the sea, for they were fishermen. And Jesus said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you become fishers of men." And immediately they left their nets and followed him. And going on a little further, he saw James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, who were in their boat, mending the nets. And immediately he called them, and they left their father Zebedee in the boat with the hired servants and followed him.
Okay. What does that tell you? What do you start with? What thoughts do you have?
Well, to me, it identifies their trade.
Okay.
It identifies the people, who they are. It also tells me they probably knew this was coming because for somebody to say, "Follow me," and they drop everything and go, they probably had been talking to Jesus ahead of time.
Either that or some psycho thing involved here, right? You know, when you go, "Oh, hypno, follow me." Yeah, I'm joking.
I know.
Okay, yeah, I know.
This time.
So it identifies the people as having a job called fishing. Okay? It seems to me then it also says there were 2 boats at least, 4 men that were called, plus a father, plus some servants. These are the people that are involved, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Anything else that we should know from just reading this? They followed immediately.
Yeah. Well, so one of the things, thinking about fishing has always been not a real wealthy profession.
Good.
But these guys have servants. But in Africa, even today, if anybody has any money at all, they share it with someone. They have them be a servant, and it spreads the money around the village or the town, wherever it is. And so it's very common in Africa today, even for people of modest means, to have servants.
Well, no, hold it. Maybe by servants, they have a little extra money, so they're careful to hire out someone.
Yeah, they spend, right. The money goes back in the economy.
Okay,
Because they will hire someone to clean house or watch their children or whatever.
So if they have some money, they will hire people.
Sure.
And if they're called a servant in this time, it's the same kind of thing. It's someone who is hired to help.
Yeah, no, as opposed to a slave.
And so when they say slave, it's an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have now servants. we have this, we'll call them middle class, but there really was no middle class. But they were working class people,
Yeah.
okay? How were they fishing? How did you go fishing just recently?
Yeah, that's a little different, yeah.
A little different. You had this pulley thing.
Yeah, these guys use nets, which is, of course, our commercial fishermen, a lot of them use nets. It's an
Yes,
efficient
they do.
way.
You just run out a half a mile of it and then hook it and just drag
Yeah,
it
and
along.
of course, these guys didn't have a half mile of it, but they had nets.
But that's it. We have net fishing, and we'll have to figure out how that works. But we'll do that as we go along. Anything else that is of interest or something you noticed?
Well, it tells me they're very rugged men because the type of fishing they're doing, in all honesty, they're casting.
Correct.
nets. I'm not sure the size, which is, what
Okay.
comes to my mind is how universal that is, because that's one of the traditions of the Pacific Islanders. They always fish by netting. And they're not huge nets, but they pass that tradition on to their children. And you'd have to have a tremendous muscular ability to toss those nets out. So that means they've got very strong arms, very strong backs.
Good, good.
And probably at night they're very tired.
Yeah, I'm sure that a day of work would tire them.
And I got another one.
Go.
They had to be brave, because people in those days were afraid of the water.
They didn't have the YMCA to teach them.
Yep.
Yeah, they didn't know how to swim, and it was scary. They don't like, so they don't like the water. They got to do the water. They throw out the nets, so they're built up strong. Then they got to bring those nets in, drag in the fish, take the fish off, go sell it, because they're not fishing just for their own food. They're fishing for sales. Then they got to find a place to sell the stuff after they've. And then this is really a workman's job. This is true labor. Okay, anything else that strikes you? Okay, in that case, let's go on to Matthew. Matthew 4, 13 to 22. And let's see what happens here.
Let's make sure I get it right, yeah.
Okay?
He left Nazareth and made his home in Capernaum by the sea, the territory of Zebulun and Naphtali, so that what they had been spoken through the prophets, Isaiah, might be fulfilled. Land of Zebulun, land of Naphtali, on the road by the sea across the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who sat in darkness have seen a great light, and for those who sat in the region in shadow of death, light has dawned. From that time, Jesus began to proclaim, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven has come near." As he walked by the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, who he is called Peter, and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fish for people." Immediately they left their nets and followed him. As he went from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets, and he called them. Immediately left their boat and their father and followed him.
Okay. Matthew's got some additions, some subtractions. What do we have now that is of interest? What strikes you?
Well, it's actually struck me towards the end, and I hadn't really thought about it before. But if they're all fishermen and they're all, working in the general area, then those four disciples undoubtedly knew each other quite well already.
I would think that's very, absolutely correct.
But their father doesn't seem to think this is anything. He doesn't seem to get very excited about it.
Well, they don't mention that he yells at him and says, "Don't leave me," your mother will hate you, and no, he doesn't say anything like that. It seems like Father didn't play any role in this, actually. Okay, good. And that's the father Zebedee of the two sons. The other two
But if
brothers.
it were discussed ahead of time, and they knew ahead of time, it would be no surprise, and this is all grooved then.
That's right. Now, if there is something beforehand, then this is something that follows through, and it's no real surprise. Real surprise. It's almost expected. I think what you say sounds right from what they're saying here. Anything else strike you? Now he's added a whole slew, the whole upper half.
Yeah. Well,
he's added. That wasn't in Mark. Okay.
well, one of the things in the first part, that these people were in darkness and they saw a great light, right? I mean, clearly that's not a literal speech, but
Correct.
But it's a good description of people at the time, I'm sure. Because they didn't have the rest of the story as we have, at least the amount of scripture we have.
Okay, we have two points in history here. One is when Isaiah talked about it, and one is now when it's being quoted. So we have to be kind of careful of which time period we're talking about. By the way, it's Zebulun and Naphtali, just for general information there. Okay, this is the land back in the Old Testament that was called Naphtali and Zebulun. Who are those? Who's Zebulun and who's Naphtali?
They're two of, which patriarch was it?
And which one had the 12 sons? Jacob.
Jacob.
Right, these are two of the boys of Jacob, two of the tribes of Israel. These were their territories that were assigned to them after they took over the land of Canaan.
Is that not in the North Kingdom?
It is definitely in the northern areas, okay? Let's see if I can do this for you. Okay, I'm going to open this up a little bit bigger here and get it off the map. Okay. This is the land of Zebulun and Naphtali, right here, this area here. It's then later will be called Galilee.
Okay.
Okay, again, the names change. This is a movie, not a standing picture. So the sea will be named a number of things, one of which will be the Sea of Galilee, but that comes during the New Testament time, not the Old
It
Testament.
was Gennesaret, right?
The Old Testament time, it was Gennesaret or Chinnereth. There were other names for it. So, but right now, just be aware that these are the two places, the two tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun. They were, yes, go ahead.
Well, and what I'm gathering here is that they're not real, they're giving it as, okay, these are the areas, but they're calling it primarily Gentile.
Good.
So,
It's a Gentile name.
so that has been, there's not many Jews there anymore?
No. That's not the case. There are still plenty of Jews. It's just that as times change and as things are referred to, children grow up with new information, new names. If the Romans, for example, had required the Gentiles that we were going to call it, and you were dealing with Gentiles, you just got used to calling it Galilee. Or if you were in the big city there, you call it Tiberias. There's all sorts of moving parts here, okay? So it's not that there were a lack of Jews. There were not a lack of Jews. It's just that over time, it started to be called something different and they got used to it.
Well, and after the Northern Kingdom fell, in the old days, aren't those the people that became the Gentiles?
No. They did not become Gentiles. Okay.
I thought the people moved in the area.
They became mixed.
Okay,
They became non-pure Jews.
okay.
Okay, by intermarrying with the people that came into there, the Syrians put into the land. They intermarried and they were lost to the pure strain of Hebrew people.
As an aside, and it comes to me today just because of what's going on, when in history when did the Jewish people as a nation become so hated and reviled by the Gentile populations? I find it really interesting. This goes over hundreds of, over centuries, and we can't get rid of it. And I'm wondering, is it the time frame when all of a sudden, Jesus comes into the picture, and all of a sudden the Jewish population takes on a different flavor?
Okay, let me take some guessing from history. I would say that from a historical aspect is when Jesus was crucified and the guilt was laid on the Jews. At that point, those that later became Christian and Christianized, they were still blaming Jews, etc. And the hatred builds up, yada yada, over the 1,500 years of time. Again, it got worse and worse.
You can still back up further though. Go all the way back to Egypt.
You can go back as far as you want, but I'm saying that specific event will dominate European history, and therefore the Holocaust and the hatred of the Jews. And now, of course, the Muslims who live, those who are now of the Islamic faith that live in the area, want to hearken back to that too, but now it's back to the British and all sorts of stuff. So let's not get too distracted from there. But it goes back, it can go back a whole lot further, depends on where you want to go. But the true hatred of them, I always say from a European standpoint, comes from the crucifixion of Jesus. Okay, anything else that comes to mind that Matthew had talked about here? Good. Okay, then let's go to the final one, and that will be the Gospel of Luke. 4:31 reads, and he came down to Capernaum, a city of Galilee. And then 55, 1 through 11. And throw your glasses on the ground. That's very important to do that.
Okay, so you
Thank
want
you.
me to start with
Yes, 5,
1
1
through
through
11?
11.
Okay. 5, 1 through 11. Once, while Jesus was standing beside the lake of Gennesaret, and a crowd was pressing in on him to hear the word of God, he saw 2 boats there at the shore of the lake. The fishermen had gone out of them and were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the one belonging to Simon, and he asked to put a little way out from their shore. Then he sat down and taught the crowds from the boat. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down your nets for a catch." Simon answered, "Master, we have worked all night long, but have caught nothing. Yet you say, so I will let down the nets." When they had done this, they caught so many fish that the nets were beginning to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them, and they came and filled both boats so that they began to sink. But when Simon Peter saw it, he fell down at Jesus' knees, saying, "Go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man." And he and all who were with him were amazed at the catch of fish they had taken. And so also were James and John, sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. Then Jesus said to Simon, "Do not be afraid. From now on, you will be catching people." Let's see,
Go
how
ahead,
far am I
rest a little
going?
bit.
Okay. When they had brought their boats to shore, they left everything and followed him.
Okay, thank you very much. This is quite different, isn't it, from what we've just read in the other 2 in Mark and Matthew. All of them have them finally moving down to Capernaum. Okay, now what happens? Now it's back to the lake of Gennesaret, okay, the little town on the northwestern edge. Let me show it to you.
But
here.
this is still the Sea of Galilee, right?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
but it would have been called the Sea of Gennesaret.
Yeah.
Gennesaret, as you can see, is here, one little town right here on the northwest corner. Here's Capernaum, so it's only a half mile from Capernaum on the Sea of Galilee, up in that northwest corner. Here. Okay, so he's there. Now, let's bring you back up, Luke. And he sees 2 boats there, but nobody's in them. Now, before they were in them, one was fishing, and the other one, they were mending their nets in the boat. Okay? So now the boats are empty, they're on shore washing their nets and mending them probably. Now, what happened? I'm just saying this is different, so here we go. So he got into one of the boats, has them back out a little bit, so he can teach from the boat. Now, you've heard of that thought before.
Well, you got a crowd.
We'll come back to that again at another time. Okay, he'll do this again. It just makes sense, and I'll show you more about it when he does use it later. Once they were done, he says, and what wasn't said before is, "Okay, let's go fishing." And they go, "Dude, I'm tired. We were up all night. We had our torches, tried fishing, and we just come up with nothing. This is crazy. We're tired. We don't really want to do this."
And you fish at night.
And of course you fish at night when the light attracts them. Of course, it draws them upward. He says, "Okay, but because it's you," he seemed to know something about this Jesus guy. "Because it's you, we'll do it." So they back out from shore. They toss the net, or put the net out into the water, let it sink down, and start drawing it up. And lo and behold, what happens? Holy mackerel! Well,
Or whatever kind of fish it was.
whatever kind of fish
Probably
it is.
butterfish.
Hopefully trout.
It won't be trout. Okay, we'll examine that too in a little while. So they start bringing in all these fish, and there are so many of them that even the nets are starting to break. Now that's a big load of fish. Okay, so that they call their partners. Now all of a sudden, James and John and Peter and Andrew are already partners with Father Zebedee somewhere in the area, but he's not mentioned. Okay, so now we have four guys as partners in the boating fishing industry. Okay, they start hauling in the fish. Okay, it's a big. We're going to talk about a big catch of fish later. By the way, this is not that one. Okay, and then they keep loading them into the boats, and they start actually to settle down in the water a bit, not sink. That's an exaggeration. Okay, probably.
But clearly as much as the boats could handle.
Yes, but they did not sink, and that's something you'll have to be sure you remember. Okay, eventually. So then Peter goes to this Simon Peter goes to this thing of, go away, I'm a sinful man. What is he talking about? What is that?
Yeah.
I'm asking you.
Well, clearly he sees this as something from God.
Correct. He sees this guy is a God thing person. And that makes me very nervous because I am a normal, sinful man. I'm a fisherman. I go to the bar or the tavern, and I'm just kidding. Okay? But
Well, he probably effectively does.
he knows he's a sinful man. Okay? And he knows this is God's representative in some fashion. He goes, get away.
He's a heavy-duty prophet, if nothing else.
Nothing else. So get away from me. Just go. You'll encounter this again later too. Because they were all amazed at this catch of fish. And then they didn't even haul it in. They don't get to shore. They don't do anything with it. It's simply, from now on, I'm going to have you catch people. Or men. Whatever. Okay? You're going to be catching people. What a weird thing to say to a fisherman. What, you want me to take a net like a Roman and go out and catch somebody? What are you talking about, catching men? I mean, some of these phrases we understand may not have made quite that sense to them. I'm sure there was...
Or may have, and we don't know.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But in this case, it would have made sense, probably because if they knew who Jesus was, and they recognized him as being from God, they're going to go, okay. There's going to be some question, but they're going to say, okay.
Especially if they had previous contact that said, you're going to do this with me, right? Make your plans.
Right, here we go. Very good. They bring the boats ashore and they take off. Leave all those fish in the boats? Are you crazy?
Yeah, the biggest probably catch they've ever had.
Yeah. Let's get that up to the market first, and then I'll come, G. No, now. Okay. Now you've started some confusion by now going, what happened, right? We don't know. Okay. So let's take a look at what I think might have happened, how it might have gone. On Wednesday, May 19th, Jesus arrived in Capernaum from Nazareth. Capernaum means village of Nahum, which was located on the northwestern shore of the Sea of Galilee. Now I'm going to bring up a map of the Sea of Galilee a bit so we can get a better view of it. Let me expand it up here. We'll go up to the northwest corner. Well, there's where the North Jordan River comes in. There's Capernaum, and right down here is Gennesaret. Oops, and I don't have, oh well. And Capernaum, what am I looking for? Gennesaret, Capernaum. Capernaum is in between them. I didn't have it on this map. I'm sorry. It's right here where these roads intersect. There's a road. This is a road. This is where they intersect, and it's going to be right in here. Okay, so we have that. Let me get rid of this map. Forget the map for now. And now, Capernaum had been upgraded to a town by the Roman influences. It was a village before, but now it's a town. okay? And they'll be building walls and things of that nature. It makes it a town. It was over a mile long and a fifth of a mile wide, Capernaum. So I'm going to bring that
That's
map
a pretty
up again.
good-sized town for that time then.
Oh, and for the area. Oh, yeah. Let me bring this up again so you see it. See, it's long, but not very wide. It's right beside the road, between the road and the water. Okay? And that's really important because it's going to control some of this area, specifically this crossroads right here, where these trade routes come through. You're going to want to have your tax people there. We'll encounter him later. Okay. And was about home to about 2,000 people. It was situated between a major branch of the Way of the Sea Highway, okay, which I'll show you later. It had a customs post. You know how it is, wherever you get two hills come together, you get the customs in between. So they make sure all the truckers are running their rigs correctly, okay? And you don't create any vegetables into the state or whatever it is. And a Roman military detachment. That's very important, okay? It was also the largest Jewish town on the Sea of Galilee. They had a beautiful black basalt synagogue. Now I want to show this to you. This black basalt is local rock. They mine it, whatever they do, quarry it, and they build these black basalt synagogues. Now this one happens to be at, this one happens to be at Chorazin, okay? But they would have had a same one, type one down here in Capernaum as well. Okay, this is a black basalt synagogue. I told you once before that the synagogue that they had later, we have there now, which is made out of that white granite, not granite, marble, is on top of a black basalt foundation. So this is what was originally there. A black basalt.
Well, it makes sense. You're going to use the materials you have available.
You have to. You can't afford to haul this stuff in.
Yeah.
Similar to the one at Chorazin, which had been 2 stories tall, 65 feet long, with a pillared hall and with the side hall for the women, because men and women do not sit together. Okay? All right, any questions so far? Any thoughts or comments?
Well, other than just the fact that because these synagogues were located in the areas, Jesus had probably entered them numerous times.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
I have no qualms about that. Although there would have been a rivalry, I'm sure, between the Capernaum synagogue and that Chorazin people that live, you know, and they would have felt that. Come on, it's like this congregation and that congregation.
Same stuff.
But we know that's one of the things Jesus did, is he went against those conventions.
Of course he did, and that's going to come. He's
Yeah.
going to visit them eventually. Not yet, but as a child and as a growing up adult, and as he's going to go to, if they have a special speaker that comes through, and they would do that, I would go to visit and listen to the speaker. They're one of us, you know. Okay, the Sea of Galilee is actually a lake 11 miles from north to south. Okay? So there's 11 miles north to south. And 7 miles east to west at the widest point here. So 7 by 11, 7-11.
It's disappearing today.
Oh yeah, it's running, yeah, it's definitely. They'll be digging up all sorts of boats out of there. The name of the lake was Chinnereth, which means harp, and may have referred to its shape. No. And the border shall go down and reach the slope of the east side of the sea of Chinnereth. Numbers 34:11, they're describing borders. So if I were to go back up here and look at the Sea of Galilee, guess what you see? 11 miles north to south, 7 miles east to west, and it kind of looks like a harp.
But it's salt water,
Fresh.
fresh water.
It's all fresh
It's called the sea.
Yeah, lake or sea, depending on who wrote it. For me, it's a lake. But if you came off a desert, it might look like a sea. I don't know. Okay.
Well, the people that lived there may have never seen what we call a sea.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean-
And that's a lot of water. When you stand there and look out over it, it's still a lot of water.
And apparently gets pretty rough at times.
Well, you've heard some other stories, I'm sure. With the division of Canaan under Joshua, this area was part of the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali. The Gentiles, the non-Jews, had called the plains, that's the area of land around the area, Galilee, from as far back as 700 BC. Plenty of time for us to get used to calling it the Sea of Galilee. Okay? And the body of water was called the Sea of Galilee. By 150 BC, the time of the Maccabean revolt, the Jews named it Gennesaret after a town on the northwestern shore and gave the name to the plains near the town. So you see how the name changes from Chinnereth to Galilee to modern, very modern in their time, this new one called the Sea of Gennesaret.
We do the same thing here.
Of course we do. It's what, yeah, I don't know, we do it much quicker here.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. By 25 AD, a new capital city had been built on the western shore of the lake and was named after the Roman Emperor Tiberius. Thus, the lake was also called the Sea of Tiberias. And this is what John would call it in 6:1. After these things, Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, or Tiberias. That's been written down for him. So it's been called all of these things. So let's not get too excited about the name. But we do want to be aware that it's in the Naphtali and Zebulun area. Okay? Any question, thought, or comment yet? Okay. Thursday morning, that was earlier, May 20th, Jesus began to teach the good news of the kingdom to the people of Capernaum. By late morning, he walked westward along the shore. So he would have walked westward along the shore. From Capernaum, he's going down toward Gennesaret. And he saw some fishing boats pulled into a cove. Now, I went there in order to find this, where this was occurring. So I'm going to show you a cove, or where it's located. And I'm going to have to expand this so that you can see it. Here's Capernaum. If you walk along the shore, there is this place even today. It's a little cove area. Okay? On the way to Gennesaret. You see that? Okay. This is where boats would pull in. It's somewhat sheltered, and that makes the perfect sense. You pull your boats in there, you park them, and then you pull out the nets, clean them, knit them on the shore. This is the place to do that. It's in a little cove. And this is where I think it's likely to have occurred. Nowhere else along the shore here is there any protection. It's just bump up into the shore. Okay? So I'll project it as a cove where he saw these fishing boats pulled up. And by the way, he's going to see them in the cove again later. Since the crowds had followed Jesus, he decided to sit and teach them some more. He also got the idea to sit on a boat while the people were gathered on shore. So he would get in the boat, back it up a little bit. He's up here, and the people could gather all around on the shore in front of him, and they could hear him. Because as you know, sound really carries across water. Mm-hmm. Okay? You can hear those radios wherever you are.
And normal shoreline terrain would get steeper as you go, higher as you go away from the water, so you can see over the guy in front of you.
Correct, so it's like an amphitheater.
Yeah.
Well, you can even see that, you have the map with the elevation lines and whatever.
Yeah.
And they're
Right.
kind of close together there.
Yeah.
Yes, so very good. Okay, Simon and his brother Andrew owned one boat, and their partners, James and his brother John, worked from another boat that was actually owned by their father Zebedee. So Zebedee owned the one boat, but they were still partners in the fishing. Question, thought, or comment?
No, just common to have people cooperate because you can do better with multiple help.
It makes absolute sense.
I wonder if they were related at all. like Uncle Zebedee or something like that.
They do not appear to have been, it was never mentioned, so we'll have to assume that that was
Well,
not
it
the
never
case.
mentions, does it mention Simon and Andrew's father?
No,
So he might have been passed away.
could be. We just don't know. Okay. They had been out all night fishing, using torches to attract the fish. You know, the law says you're not allowed to use a light out at night. That's why they did it. It worked. The light draws the fish. You throw out the net. The weight sinks the edges. You draw the sinking edges in. You pull in the net, and you sort the fish. Now, I'm going to show you a picture of netting being done on the Sea of Galilee. What they do in this case is they take a little boat and row it out, and they loosen the net, and then the weight drops it down, and they simply drag it in, and you've caught whatever's in the middle. And that's what they're doing. These are fishermen on the Sea of Galilee today. Well, they may be dead now, who knows. Okay? Any questions so far then? The other way is the tossing net, where and you've seen pictures of this in the National Geographic stuff, where they have the net gathered in and they toss it out and they roll it loose and it spreads it out and then it sinks down. And then they pull a cord on the bottom which pulls it together, and then they pull it up and they've caught whatever fish was in that column as it had sunk. Okay, all the way to the bottom. And if you're in a larger boat, you then plant you can throw out more net. Okay? So, netting. You certainly don't put 15 guys on a boat with poles. You can't catch enough fish. Okay? Not make a living. Okay, any questions so far? This was often quite productive. But last night had been poor. They had cast repeatedly and caught virtually nothing. You always catch something. Now they were cleaning, repairing, drying, and refolding their nets in preparation for the next evening, when they would go out again.
Well, in those days, the nets were probably made from things that will rot if you don't get them nice and dry.
Oh, they were made of natural
Yeah,
fibers.
they didn't have synthetics.
No, they were natural fibers. And yes, you better take good care of them because frankly, you don't want to redo them too often. Okay, anything else? Okay. Jesus knew these men, and they knew him. Andrew had been a follower of the Baptists, remember? Way back when he called them down by the dead, when he was baptized, after he was baptized. And had introduced Simon to Jesus then. Both had talked often about Jesus to James and John, their partners and friends. They knew something of his teaching and had heard of some of the signs that Jesus had done. They knew him, just as you said. And that's why some of this will not come as such a great surprise. They had talked about it. This morning, Jesus asked Simon if he might sit on his boat to teach. Now, what did their boats look like? Here we go. Here's a model of one of their boats. You can be rowed here. It has a sail. It has a front and rear deck. Okay? And this is a type of boat that they discovered when the sea was low last time. They found it and preserved it, and they've rebuilt this model based on that, what they found. This is probably very much like the boats they used, okay, at the time. So here you have the boat. Later some guys go to sleep.
We also know on these boats, they could not sail upwind.
No, they couldn't tack.
That did not happen until the 1200, 1300s?
1300, yeah, right about then.
But so right now this is a downwind sail only, so it was hard work. They had to row that sucker against the wind.
As soon as you want to go north, basically, because the wind tends to come out of the north, you roll up your sail and you start rowing, and you just work. And again.
And then you fish.
And then, yes. Well, that's why Capernaum is so nice, but we'll get to that a little later. It's kind of up near where you want to be fishing. They were lucky. Some of the other villages weren't nearly so lucky. Okay, so that everyone might see and hear. Simon agreed. Simon moved the boat into position just offshore and then went back to work. Duh, he's a fisherman. I got work to do. I'm not going to sit around and listen to this guy, except what I can hear I'm not going to sit and listen. When Jesus had finished teaching and had dismissed the crowd to get lunch, go to McDonald's or Burger King or whoever is your fancy place, Jesus suggested to Simon, who was already done repacking for tonight's fishing, to go fishing now. This was not really a good time to fish. This is noontime. With a bright, hot sun, the fish would be deep. You all know that who are fishermen. In the middle of the day, they go down to where it's cooler and it's harder to fish.
You fish all you want, just don't plan on catching.
Yeah, you won't be catching. Good point.
Not with a net.
No, or even with a hook half the time, they're deep and I don't want to move. Now, even if I think of I'm eating lunch, think food, the fish don't care. Okay, so this is not a good time. Simon was frustrated and tired. He was frustrated from not having a good catch. He was tired from all the work involved and looking forward to an afternoon nap, and was not happy with the idea, and he said so. But this was Jesus, a rabbi. Andrew believed that Jesus could be the Messiah, or one who called the Messiah. We're not sure yet. All the rumors indicated that he spoke with the authority and the power of God. So Simon agreed to go fishing, even knowing that it was a waste of time and effort. Come on, you know how fishermen are. They know everything. This is stupid, but I'll do it. I won't say it's stupid, but I'll do it. Okay? What a waste of time and effort. Mumble. He took the boat, the crew, however many that were involved in that, and Jesus onto the lake, almost due south to deeper water. Due south. They're not very far either. Doesn't have to go far. It slopes off rather quickly in this area. Okay? But he's going south to a little deeper area. He set the nets and let them sink deep, and then began to draw them in. Any thoughts or comments yet?
Well, clearly he was surprised. How could he not be?
There's the next word. Surprise! I hope I spelled it right. I did. There were fish. Too many fish. So many fish that the nets were beginning to break from the weight. Simon and Andrew called for James and John to hurry out to help. And they would just say, "Hey guys, get down here quick!" Okay, because you can hear it across the water. After a while, both boats were filled beyond capacity, and still there were more fish. Does that bring anything to mind?
Feeding of the 5,000?
Well, I mean, the whole deal is, it's a huge surprise, and they're learning a lesson from this.
Okay.
It has something to do with listening.
Notice that we're talking about aquatic creatures.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking on this world, not this one. You better start thinking both, people. Think spiritually as well. Okay? And I'll hint, if the boat were the church, and it calls all fish unto it, it will never sink. There will always be room for more. And you're getting the picture. So just keep that thought in the back of your mind. 2 levels at all times. Even these 2 sturdy boats began to ride low from the weight. Finally, they let the rest of the fish go and began to row back to shore. With the emergency over and the catch in the boats, Simon suddenly realized for himself that Jesus really did speak with the authority of God. Fearing the unknown and knowing that he had doubts, he begged Jesus to leave. But Jesus said to Simon, follow me. From now on, you will be fishing for men as Jeremiah prophesied. Now, what was this prophecy of Jeremiah? Behold, I'm going to send for many fishermen, declares the Lord, and they will fish for them. Men.
I can really relate, though, to Simon, because I find myself here today, most of the time not feeling worthy, even though I know it's a free gift of grace, and that I'm more concerned about those I care about and love receiving what I consider to be the blessings that I have. Yeah. And I can understand Simon. You know, here's a man that's been poor. He's a hardworking man. He knows no pleasure like we might think of. I mean, I can't imagine working that hard. And all of a sudden, this miracle happens right in his face. And what did I do to deserve this? And he has not got the blessing that we do of hindsight.
That's right.
And he's got to be overwhelmed. I mean, to the point of just.
Oh, he was. That's it. I've got to get separated from this guy.
Yeah.
Because what else could this guy do? He could actually talk to me and call my sins upon my head.
He could do what I deserve. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would be cursed. No. Please leave me alone. I'm not worthy. It's Jesus' response that goes to this. There is no judgment of worthiness here. He looks at him and he says, follow me. This is an official call to be a disciple, which I'll explain in a little while what they mean by disciple. But it's an official call to come and do the work of God. What has Simon done all his life? Fish. He's now being called, and he's discussed theology and what it means to be a good Jew and the Torah. He's discussed all, and he's a good man, assumedly. But now he's being called to go and proclaim this message to others. He's got to be a talker. Wow! He's being called. Follow me. Jesus didn't say much. He just said, follow me. And from now on, you will be fishing for men. People. Jesus had formally called Simon to be a disciple. Simon and Andrew both decided to follow Jesus as full-time disciples. That does not mean 24/7, 365. You'll find that out later. Okay? It just means we're going to spend a lot of time together. Okay? And like I said, I'll explain that part later. Question, thought, or comment?
It would be interesting. These people clearly are now worldwide known everywhere by Christians, of course.
Yes.
And I'm guessing at the time they had no clue that they themselves would become famous over this.
I'm sure that he didn't think, oh, good, I've always wanted to be a disciple, and this will be my chance.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
He was expecting always to be a fisherman and die an old man as a fisherman. I'm sure, just like old Zebedee was. Okay, mm-hmm. but he's a young man. He's a little idealism. He probably, he'd gone down to talk to see John the Baptist, and he was down there when he met Jesus. So he cared about God. He cared about being a good Jew. Okay. This is important to him, but he had to earn a living because he has a wife and such. And a mother-in-law. We know that from later. Okay? So, yeah, I don't think he was an idealist too much. Until Jesus said, follow me. Just as Jesus has said to each one of us, follow me. He did it in his own way. In our lives, he spoke to us.
We don't always listen.
You did, didn't you? So don't use the we in this one. You did. You responded and you became a disciple. I did. Each one of us has too. You're a disciple. You proclaim the word.
When I say we, I guess it's a more inclusive we than that.
Yeah, well, I just changed it.
And sometimes I don't listen.
That's fine, but I'm sure Peter will have a little problem with that later too. That doesn't matter. You chose to follow Jesus. We each did. Okay? Once they got back to the docks of Capernaum, which it did have a small dock, I'm sure there, and arranged for the sale of fish. Excuse me, I'm not going to waste this catch. You arranged for the sale of fish. Jesus went over to where James and John were mending their nets and spoke with them. He formally called them to be disciples. They also agreed to be full-time disciples, and I'll explain that. Peter, Andrew, James, and John had now given up their old lives, as Philip and Nathanael had already done, to spend all of their time in the service of God. Now, the light of God would shine for the Gentiles as Isaiah had prophesied. And you recognize the prophecy of Isaiah 9:1-2. But there will be no more gloom for her who was in anguish. In earlier times, he treated the lands of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali with contempt. But later on, he shall make it glorious by the way of the sea. On the other side of the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles, the people who walked in darkness, will see a great light. Those who live in a dark land, the light will shine on them. And what is the light? That's not a rhetorical question.
Well, clearly it's Jesus.
Jesus the Christ, the Messiah. Yes, the light will shine there first, and the world will eventually see it. Questions, thoughts, or comments?
Well, I just think of the tremendous strength it took those men to walk away from what was security. You're living in a very tenuous time in that framework, and to walk away from everything you know, everything that you take for granted,
Right.
and walk off with this man, even though, I can't, again, it's
That's
hard
like
for me-
someone showing up at your doorstep, looking at you and saying, follow me. We're going to Southeast Asia, and you're going to be a minister. Walk with me now.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine
It's
turning
like-
around my wife.
Or you to Africa.
Yeah.
Well, so hold on, so, hang on now. Let's put this into more modern perspective.
Okay.
In the 1800s, people in the Midwest sold everything they had. They bought an overpriced covered wagon and some mules, and they headed to a place they had never seen, never known anyone who had actually been there, but there were rumors that they could do well there. And they crossed the country at great risk.
To the Oregon, up the Oregon Trail.
Yep, in fact, my great-grandfather was one of them, right? And they, just on a rumor, they sold everything they had and uprooted their entire life.
Well, my father-in-law did that even earlier during the First World War. He left the army in Europe and came across not knowing how to speak English. He was in his early 20s, on a call from his uncle in Washington, which he had no idea what the heck that was. He barely even knew what America was.
Americans, yeah.
And the same thing you're talking about, Ken, and he took a gamble, sailed to America, not knowing nothing,
Yep.
not a penny in his pocket,
Right.
ended up in Washington working for his uncle, and then the two of them worked together. I mean, the strength that takes, I mean, I'm
There's a
so
moral
glad we-
courage.
But that's why this doesn't surprise me that these guys would
Well-
walk away from the business.
I mean, I'm going to have to slow you down now because we're getting too far afield in one sense. You're making the assumption that you have, which is they left everything and followed him 24/7, 365. That is not the way it happened. A full-time disciple would come and go as they're able, but they still had to go back and work for their family. He would go off for a week or two with Jesus and make a tour of Galilee and come back and go back to work. It wasn't quite the way we pictured that, and that's why I wanted to let you go ahead with the picturing first. Okay? A full-time disciple would go off for lengths of time and then come back.
Military reserve type.
There, thank you. So, I still admire them, but let's not get too far afield on this one, okay? They did not walk away for 7/24/365. It didn't happen, okay?
Still, it was a big commitment and a big
Yes.
change in life.
Yes, it
For
was.
their families, for their families as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, there we have it. Any questions, thoughts, or comments left over? All right, next week, let's see. Oh, it's going to be a very long day.